Our 11-year-old consistently sneaks online to play, so loses his mind privileges almost every week, and then spends an hour looking over his brother's shoulder while he plays, plus is resentful that his brother gets video game time and he doesn't.
So in that case, what you're doing is you're feeding the addiction. Because if you get a little taste of it, it feeds it, it fuels it. And Charles Duhigg will talk about this. So read The Power of Habit and what's happening in the brain. So there's a lot of arguments to, well, just do a little bit. But in a very real way, what's happening to the brain, a little bit of it is like a little bit of drugs. So you're like, hey guys, drugs are bad for you. Heroin will destroy your life, so you can smoke weed on Mondays. Right? Well, that fuels the problem. It really does. And so I know
he's using this example, and it sounds like an extreme example, but in books like iMinds, they literally talk about how a cocaine addiction and any other addiction, it's the same wiring pathway in the brain. And again, not every single person who smokes marijuana is going to end up doing heroin. That's not true. And not every single person who plays a video game is going to end up addicted. That's not true. In some people who have more of that addictive personality, and that may be your 11-year-old, because that sounded that's like what my son was like. That is true. And I knew for him, I had to protect him because of his natural tendencies. When they get older, they have more of an ability to control themselves. But if we facilitate that addiction at a younger age, it's going to be that much harder for them when they're older.
And the fact that they're sneaking is revelatory for all of us about the nature of the thing. If it's so like addicting, like the brain's craving it, they're willing to sneak and hide and go against your desires to try to get to it. That again, it reveals the nature of the thing, right? It's crazy. So anyways, so someone's asking again, I just made a list here and I'm happy to share it somewhere else. So Andrew Uberman, his stuff on the podcast.
It's the podcast.
Phenomenal.
He's got great stuff on dopamine. Anything on dopamine and addiction is going to be great.
Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit. And it gets real nerdy, sciencey, but you have to know what's happening in the head. And he points out very clearly, he's like, once you have an addictive pattern, you literally do not think. Your brain stops thinking, and all it does is go to the addiction. So they won't think about anything else. They won't think clearly. It's like, what were you thinking? Why were you sneaking that? Why are you doing that? Why were you on there for 14 hours? And they're like, wait, what? I thought it was like 2 hours. Like you can't think. The brain shuts down. So we have to understand what's happening in the brain in order to make clear decisions about, do we allow video games in our families?